in 3, 2, 1.
And yeah, we're going.
We did some bench pressing today, and we tried some of those overheads.
Yeah, the overheads are not my favorite because I just feel like every time I'm done with them, my back gets a little tweaked.
The Z pressing?
No,
We
it's
didn't mess
like-
with the Z for today. We just stayed on the we stayed standing up, but we did a couple sets. It felt pretty good.
Yeah. No, yesterday, shoot.
The breathing I sucked at. I was having a hard time with that, and it made a huge difference, like a 50-pound difference for me.
Huge,
today.
yeah. I did 95 pounds. I've done that many times before, but it was super easy once Brian was like, no, you got to get your breath before you even, touch the bar, and then, be like, quick with it. Don't like take time to set up, just go. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. And yeah, it made a huge difference.
Yeah, no, there's something different I did yesterday. And I can't pinpoint what it was, but the overheads that we were doing yesterday were much easier, even on the push pressing. So there was something he showed there. I guess that's why it's a complete guide to overhead pressing.
When you
Just
do
made it easier.
when you do jiu-jitsu and you're doing like your drills, I know for me, like when I was doing like pro wrestling, like even though sometimes you're doing a drill and you're trying not to hurt anybody else and stuff, and you're trying to go through the drill because it's practice.
Mm-hmm.
But you're really like, once you kind of have the idea down, once you see it, you're really going through it. Like you're going hard. Do you guys do that in jiu-jitsu? Do you go like once everybody kind of understands what needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
you guys go in pretty hard on it?
Yeah, like there's a drilling and then there's a sparring part. So when he shows us like the technique of the day and then we drill it, initially you're drilling it a little bit slow unless it's meant to be an explosive technique, right?
Give everyone kind of a second to understand what you're doing and everything.
Yeah. So you'll drill it a little bit slow. Once you get the hang of it, you can then start speeding it up, putting on the choke a little bit harder, putting it on quicker. Yeah.
Yeah, because when we were doing the stuff with Brian today, he didn't really mention it to us as much yesterday, but today he was like, he did say it. He was like, no pitter pattering around. Like he didn't want you to take extra steps, but today he put it in better terms. He was like, you don't have a lot of time on this lift. As soon as you pick the weight up out of the rack, because we're doing an overhead press,
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you pick that weight up out of the rack, you're like losing time. And you're losing strength because you'll be losing how long you can hold your breath. So before you ever load your body up with the weight, he said, get yourself aggressive, get that air in your body, keep your core tight, take your steps back, and pretend that you're in like a race.
Yeah.
And he kind of showed us like how aggressive like he would step into it. And I was like, okay. And it made more sense to me because I was like, that's the way I did drills when I was wrestling. And that side of me, and part of the reason why I'm retired and I deserve to be retired, is because I don't have that same little gear in there. I can
Mhm.
still lift heavy and I can still go at it, but on an assistance exercise, I'm not normally thinking that. And that's like a flaw. It's like you're like kind of missing the killer instinct.
Yeah.
You want yourself like up against the ropes, and you do want to kind of kick your own ass. You do want to kind of kill yourself in your workouts. With some, you want within some reason, right? You don't want to totally annihilate yourself. But his point was that aggression is going to lead you to not getting hurt. If you soften up too much, you have the ability to tweak your back or something like that,
I wonder, do you think that like you don't have that on the overhead press because you don't overhead press much? Because when we see you bench press, like even if you're about to move heavy weight, you get ready, you move under, and you're just like, you move
Yeah.
fast. Like you don't waste time on bench pressing. So is it just because you don't do it as much?
Yeah, it could be that kind of thing where I'm trying to like feel it out.
Yeah.
And I'm like unsure. But it's interesting, like what being unsure can do to you. It can make you look like a rookie really quick because I've been lifting for 30 years.
Yeah.
Right? I shouldn't look like a newbie on there. But I sure did, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I find it to be interesting. But having him in town was amazing. We learned a lot from him. I was able to share a lot with him. He learned a lot from us. He shot such good content with us. The podcast was amazing. A lot of the stuff he said in the podcast, I think, is stuff that we'll remember for a really long time. And a lot of the things he shared with us on our YouTube channel and everything like that was amazing. But the one thing that I think really kind of stuck with me is the topic that you want to talk about today. I just found it interesting the way he looked at suffering in his training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like I was thinking about that a lot today. And I was just wondering because it brought me back. When I started playing soccer as a kid, right? I started at like 6 or 7. And when I was 8 years old, I remember this really vividly. We were doing hills on a field, and this is the time where I was playing more competitive soccer. So the coach was a more serious guy. I remember his name too, Brandon Cavett. And we were doing some like sprint drills. I wasn't greatest at endurance. Like I was good at fast stuff, but not endurance. And I think I had a little bit of asthma then too, right? So my breathing was a little bit bad. So I started kind of whining a little bit because I was tired. And Brandon's like, Nsima, you need to stop being a little prima donna. And that hit home. I still remember how he said it, because after that, like I told my mom, and she was like, maybe you do. And I was like, dang, like, okay. And from there, really pushing myself, especially physically, past comfort, became something normal to me. So when he talked about suffering beautifully, and you see all the workouts that he does on his Instagram, and you see how hard he pushes himself, and it's difficult as hell. I was wondering, what can people do, or how can people get themselves to that place? What do you need to be able to get yourself past a place where you can just continue to push past massive discomfort? Because I feel it a lot with jujitsu. Like with jujitsu and sparring, I don't take breaks when I spar, even after, like, let's say we'll have 9 or 10 sparring sessions after drilling, right? But after the 6th one, my heart's already racing. But something something is in me, or I don't know, there's a reason, but I just continue sparring even though I'm exhausted, because I know that that's going to help me to get better. If I can do well when I'm tired, I can improve faster. So how can people develop that? Because I think that's powerful.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it. But what I like about what you're saying, what I'm intrigued about is, I would imagine at jiu-jitsu, there's probably some really awesome jiu-jitsu practitioners, but there's probably not a lot of guys that are your size and strength. Maybe in the class, maybe in your whole school, is there like one other guy that's...
There's a few guys that are
Okay.
stronger than me. That 2 guys, they're actually white belts that are stronger. Neho is a brown belt. He's like 280, 290. He doesn't lift, but
Stronger
he's
as in they still handle you
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu wise?
they can still handle me. There's a
Right.
few upper belts I can.
So
still, yeah.
I would imagine though too that you probably love the challenge of being fatigued and trying to go up against these other guys.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's probably because you're a competitive person. So I think that's probably something ingrained in you. And I also believe this is something I thought about years and years and years ago, but the pressure, I can't describe it, and I wish I had a better way of describing some of this stuff, but I just don't. There's no real way to describe the pressure of like a heavy squat. Now, maybe a heavy squat, because I haven't played every sport, and I haven't done enough jiu-jitsu to know. Maybe the bottom of a heavy squat feels like somebody getting your back and like just about to tap you out. Like I don't really know, but there's something that you gravitate towards with that pressure. That pressure feels really good. I've heard a couple friends, and I haven't never done this, but they do some like deep water dives, and because they go down so deep, they start to feel a lot of pressure, and like you get the same pressure kind of like behind your eyes and in your face and in your body that you get from doing like a heavy squat. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes. And we talked about, there's different types of sports that have a different adrenaline dump or different adrenaline rush. Like whitewater rafting is going to be way different than powerlifting, right?
Yeah.
Or snowboarding or something like that. It's going to be just drastically different. They're not going to feel the same, but there's something interesting to me about like just handling a heavy weight in a training session and kind of having that pressure build up. So for me personally, like a way that I have an opportunity to build upon myself, to build myself up, I've been calling it for years, suffering for the unknown, because you don't know what it's for, and then maybe someday you find out. Like I was able to like turn it into a career, so maybe that's what it's for. I don't know. We'll find out. Like I don't really know what the story is. But you work hard, and suffer is a big word, right? Like we're just talking about lifting.
Yeah.
We're not at war, we don't know, like thankfully we're all very healthy. And so we're not when we say suffer, it's just our own pussy version of us being a little sore and tired in the gym. It's not.
That's true.
There's people that suffer horrific things. There's people in third world countries. We're not talking about any of that stuff because thankfully we don't have to deal with any of that. We're talking about our own baby suffering that we have over here, which is our legs being tired and those types of things. I just like to put that out there and just so people just they understand. You know, we're not trying to sound heroic. And we're not trying to sound tough, but we're trying to help you understand some ways that you can get yourself to be better. Because once you get a little taste of this, it is highly addictive.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to challenge yourself in so many different ways. You're probably not old enough to remember when George Foreman came back into boxing. But when George Foreman came back into boxing, he's probably older than I am right now. I'm 42. He's probably like 45. And he came back and he fought like Evander Holyfield and stuff. And like he did great. He won the belt back. He was demoralized in the late 70s. I believe it was in late 70s by Muhammad Ali. And he never returned to the ring again. Got knocked out by Muhammad Ali. George Foreman was one of the most dominant boxers in the history of the sport. He's one of the biggest, most athletic, most powerful men to ever walk the face of the earth. He was a nightmare to fight, and he was mean. That's people don't even understand that. George Foreman was fucking mean.
You'd never assume that.
No,
nowadays.
he's so nice and happy. Got a big old smile, right? That was later on because he was making so much money. I think he got pretty happy by that. But he was a mean bastard, and like people that that Muhammad Ali fought and had wars with. Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier 3 times. And every time it was a war. And Joe Frazier broke Muhammad Ali's jaw. Joe Frazier beat Muhammad Ali. Ken Norton. Muhammad Ali had wars with Ken Norton. And George Foreman, when he fought Joe Frazier, he knocked him down 3 times in 1 round.
Dang.
He kicked the shit out of everybody. He was completely unstoppable. He ran into Muhammad Ali, and Muhammad Ali just demoralized him. I've talked about it on this podcast before, where Ali said to Foreman, "Is that all you got?" And it was in like the 8th round, and Foreman was like, "That's all I got." But when Foreman came back, because he's a veteran fighter, he didn't waste any. He didn't waste any energy. He didn't do a lot of extra movement.
Mm-hmm.
But in between rounds, and I think as a challenge and as a hey, I'm going to show you young guys what's up. He didn't sit down in between rounds. You see him right there. He's just standing in the corner. He wouldn't sit down in between the rounds. Everyone else sits down on a stool. You see it in MMA all the time. There he is fighting Evander Holyfield. And it's like, how can you develop a mindset that is kind of like frightening to your opponent? Or how can you develop a mindset that makes you feel really good?
Yeah.
And makes you want to kind of continue to move forward. We had David Goggins on the podcast. Remember, David Goggins was talking about Rocky. And he was talking about some of his favorite moments from Rocky, how, Rocky just wasn't getting tired and Apollo was kicking the shit out of him. And Apollo just had that look and he just threw his hands down to the side like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to keep bashing your face in because I don't have anything left anymore. And then it's like, how can you develop a similar mindset, a similar mentality? I think one way to do it is to go to the gym.
Yeah, no, go to the gym. And, if you're just starting out, I think that's why Brian yesterday was like, I think he mentioned that people should work into some of the stuff that he's doing because I think it also takes obviously a certain level of skill. I can remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, I would take breaks between sparring sessions. I don't remember when that kind of thing stopped. I think it was maybe towards blue belt when I was getting the hang of things. Then I didn't feel that I had to stop anymore. And I don't stop because I've built a level of skill that I don't feel that, I feel that I can keep going even when I'm really exhausted. I can figure something out when I'm tired. And also like for myself, like I really have a big reason why I want to get better. So whenever I'm feeling really tired, it always kind of comes back to that. It comes back to, okay, why are you here? Okay, you're feeling like this. You know why you're here. You know why you want to get better. Okay, get back and find somebody else to roll with. That's a really important thing. And you don't have to be someone who's trying to compete. You don't have to be trying to get to a world level or anything. I think you just have to have something that's important to yourself that when you're feeling like absolute dog crap, you can go back to that and pull from that.
Is your reason why kind of attached to your goals? Like I think you've mentioned to me that you want to be a black belt kind of in a short period of time, but does it extend past that?
Yeah, I want to get my black belt quickly, which requires a lot of mat time. It requires a lot of repetitions. Whenever I'm there, I need to take advantage of all the time I have. But I also want to compete against some of the top guys in the sport that are currently black belts. And by the time I think I might get my black belt, I know that they're probably not going to leave the black belt ranks, so I may be able to get a shot at them. That's the goal. So if that's the goal, that means that I can't really rest much because they're already so far ahead. I have to try and catch up in any way that I can.
And they may have been doing it since they were like 6.
13,
Yeah.
6,
Yeah.
7, right? So that's why like I need, like, they're probably training harder than I am.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I have certain strengths that I know that are maybe ahead of them, and they have a lot of strengths that are ahead of me. So I just need to try and do everything I can to get there.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about high-level sports. Supposedly, the way it's supposed to work is that you're supposed to play a lot of different sports. You're not supposed to specialize. However, I think when it comes to something like this, like any sort of grappling or really anything that just requires just so much air, like I don't think you can ever be too conditioned
Yep.
for jiu-jitsu or boxing or wrestling or MMA. You could kind of make the argument like, look, if someone's been doing it since they're 4 or 5, it's like just one less thing for them to worry about. They probably don't really, their cardio is probably so high because they've just been doing it for so long, you know, and they've been getting better. They've been getting better the entire time. But you can look at it this way too. You can say, well, they don't have the background I have. You know, I played soccer for many years, which is a different sport, and you had an opportunity to grow and maybe possibly be more athletic than them in some other endeavor.
In some ways, like maybe like obviously I think the lifting portion and the strength aspect of things plays a pretty big role in grappling. You know, we talked about if people have the same level of skill, but one person is vastly stronger than the other, then the person that's stronger can beat the other person even though they have the same level of skill. So I think that can play a big role. But yeah, I think that when it comes to this though, like having a base level of skill so that you can push yourself to those levels and you do know, I guess, where your limit is, that's really important, because I can honestly say I don't know where my limit is currently in terms of my cardio output for jiu-jitsu, because I haven't gone to a place where I've had to really stop. So I think that's really important. But also, like, as far as lifting is concerned, or for strength athletes, yeah, it doesn't mean that you want to be doing 1 rep maxes every single training session. But like we were talking about a little bit before, when you're doing some of your accessory movements, you can probably maybe add in different movements that you've never worked with before. You can take shorter rest periods. Like, okay, so you're not going to rest 30 seconds between a 1 rep max squat, but if you're doing, you know, like some Pendlay rows, or if you're doing overhead pressing, you can add in some burpees like maybe Brian Alsruhe does, and you can add in some of these things to really push yourself in some of those movements and see what you can do. See how that may help your conditioning.
How many? So you've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 2.5 years or so.
I think now it's going to be 4 years come December. Come December, it's going to be 4 years.
Yeah, so 4 years of jiu-jitsu, and like, how many practices would you view as? How many practices did you have that you feel were poor? And I don't mean poor just because like you couldn't figure out the execution that you worked on the prior session, because sometimes that happens, right? It's like sometimes the stuff's not computing on how to get a certain hold or something like that. But I mean, you left there and you were pretty pissed off at yourself because you feel like you didn't get enough out of it. Like you almost didn't work hard enough.
It would only be the practices that maybe Cassio wasn't there, because Cassio, when he's there, when we have sparring sessions, he runs a lot of sparring sessions. Sometimes when other people,
and he's a good coach, and he's going to make sure that you have an intense workout.
Yeah, even if like
he knows it's important.
Exactly. Like he'll sometimes this morning, I think we had 8 or 9 sparring sessions, which is a good amount. Like that's 8 or 9 6-minute rounds. But sometimes,
oh my God.
yeah. Sometimes when
That's a lot of work.
yeah,
Holy shit.
yeah. But sometimes when other instructors are there, sometimes they might only have us do 5 rounds or 6 rounds. Those are the only times where I'm just like, I wish we did more. Like like I'm not disappointed. Well, I am a little bit disappointed because I don't feel that I did enough. But it's just like, yeah, those are the kind of sessions where I leave wanting to do more. When Cassio's there, when I leave, I'm like, could have done more, but it was a good amount of work we did today. Yeah.
It can get to a kind of diminished returns at some point if you did 20 rounds, you know?
Yeah, but I think that there's times where we do something called King of the Hill. And King of the Hill is just like it sounds. Like you'll have a bunch of people that line up. Like let's say there's 30 people or 20 people in the class, and you'll have 8 guys on the mat. And people will just like literally line up and go roll. And what it's like is like if you get submitted, you leave the middle and you go in. But if you stay in the middle, people are just continuing to come at you. If you tap them, you go to the next person. I like those. We haven't been able to do it in a while, but I like that because it's rare. Like recently, the last time we did it, I think I left the middle once, and it was because Cassio came and kicked my ass. And then I came back in. But I like that because it pushes you to that place where you're like, okay, you're done. You tap that person. Okay, another person's coming. You don't get a break. Another person's coming. You don't get a break. And I like those training sessions because I really think that with jiu-jitsu, you need to train in an exhausted state so you can start relying on like technique. And I like the way that feels, and I can really work those things. So I think it's necessary to get to that place every so often.
I find it really interesting that that's like embedded into that sport, where that's not really embedded into lifting. However, it is embedded into the CrossFit community.
Yeah.
And we've seen like the progress that they've made, and it wasn't really. I mean, I guess you could see it. You could say bodybuilders, pre-exhaust,
failure, and all that.
Yeah, pre-fatigue, and some of those things. Drop sets. A drop set would be like a King of the Hill scenario. Like, how long can you last? When we just continue the duration of this set, even though you're exhausted, right? Kind of similar. It's definitely a similar principle, but like just getting yourself super exhausted through, various drills and stuff. You see that quite a bit in CrossFit, and then you kind of see the amplification of how many men and women have gotten so lean and so fit, in a short period of time. So it makes a lot of sense. And then it's like, I guess it can be a little bit hard sometimes to try to convert it into like weights. 'Cause like, what would that look like in a deadlift session? Would you be doing burpees in between your deadlifts? You can make an argument that maybe you'll never really get that strong if you're doing the burpees in between your deadlifts, but you could also make the argument the other way and say, maybe this would be a new way of your body recognizing training, and maybe you just adapt to it.
Yeah. Finding where your limit is with that. 'Cause I think everybody at all different skill levels has a different limit. There's going to be like the lifter who hasn't been training so long, and yeah, they'll push themselves and they'll find, okay, I'm getting into deep water here. I can't handle it. But then there's a lifter that maybe they've been training a few years and they're being a little bit too conservative still. Like there's this guy I was working with a few years back, and he did a max test for a deadlift. All right. And in the video he sent me, he did like 385, I think, for like 5. And he was like, that was an RPE 9. For anybody that doesn't use those RPE terms, that means you had 1 rep left in the tank. A 10 means you can't do anymore. Our 9 means 1 more. I watched the video, and his last rep was just as fast as his first rep. It didn't move any slower, and it didn't look that difficult. I was like, that's not a 9. So I was like, take a week. Let's do this again on, I think, Saturday or something. Take 425. Do it as many as you can. He did like 6. And then he was like, oh, wow. So I think that's like, I think a lot of lifters are there where they don't necessarily know what, I guess, going into that deep water feels like, getting close to that failure actually feels like. And because they're so conservative, and it is good to be conservative, but if you're too conservative, you're not allowing yourself to reach your potential.
Yeah, you might not really grow. And then if you take that same lifter, and what if he was to do 425 after another client of yours who's a similar age and similar body weight did 425 for 8? Would your guy be able to do it for 8?
Maybe. Probably.
He'd probably get it. He'd probably get it for 8 and maybe even go for the 9th rep.
Yeah.
Right? Like
yeah.
he might even get the 9th rep. So, sometimes having, a training partner or having someone that can hold you accountable, how many like workouts do you think you had in that same 4 year span? Because it sounds like in jujitsu, you maybe just had like a couple. Maybe there wasn't as many people participating on that particular day, or maybe your main coach wasn't there. What about in terms of lifting?
Lifting, I haven't had many bad workouts. I can't think of a workout that I had that was bad.
Because what I'm thinking of about lifting and what I see sometimes is sometimes it can get a little difficult for somebody to get in like a rhythm with their workout. And sometimes somebody comes in and something hurts. And then they're like, are kind of unsure what to do from there. I've had workouts like that before. Lately, over the last 2 years or so, I've been feeling pretty good. But I have workouts before where I'm like, oh my God, my shoulder, man, that's weird. My shoulder normally doesn't hurt. Like, what's going on with this? Maybe I'm trying some bench and then I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, well, that ain't working. Let me try some back. And then I'm like, oh my God, my bicep and elbow hurt too.
Yeah.
And then I'm super frustrated. I'm like, you know what? Probably just makes sense to just leave the gym, and just
Mhm.
just to go home and just rest. And so I think sometimes people get a little confused on, where should they push and where should they kind of like pull back. And I guess you would have to figure out, where is this pain coming from, right? Like, what did you do the previous weeks to kind of lead you down this road?
Yeah, I think that perspective that you mentioned there is on the money, because if I looked at my lifting right now through the lens of a power lifter, I can't bench heavy right now. And like, even though bench wasn't my best lift, I still liked benching, and I can't bench heavy because of my AC joint. So I've had to do a lot of overhead work and a lot of incline work and a lot of tempo work with benching, because I have to be careful with how
Just
fast I go
we
up
got
and
to
come down.
pause right here just for a second because this is awesome what you're saying. Right now, you don't have the ability to bench press because it hurts a lot. And you're smart enough to say, I should not be messing with the bench press, and you're picking another exercise. I think not everyone wants to do that, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of times people don't want to do that. So that takes a level of discipline. Like that's a discipline right there to say that's not in my best interest. I would love to do that, but bench pressing it makes up I don't know, 15% of my lifting,
Mhm.
right? And the rest is all other stuff. So there's plenty of other options for me to choose from.
Yeah, yeah. And I still find as many things as I possibly can to like get my chest going. Like even cable cable
Crossover.
cable crossovers, because I can get a lot of chest in there. A lot of dumbbell work. I can do a lot of overhead work without any type of pain. So I just progress any pushing movements that I can without any pain. I just do that. I do wish I could bench, but like again, if I was so concentrated on benching, then I would say that every workout for the past like 8 or 9 months has been shit, right? Because I can't bench. But no, I haven't had bad workouts because there's so many other things that I can do and I can progress really well that I always leave the gym pretty happy.
And you've had some knee injuries in the past. You even had a knee surgery over the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what did you do for that? You just audible and pick different exercises?
Yeah, that was at the old gym. So the cool thing is, shoot, what's his name? What's the guy that worked with the pro basketball players? That he's bald. He worked with
Stanford, right?
no, not Stanford, not Stanford.
oh.
He came to the old gym. He worked
Oh.
with the Lakers, like as in terms of strength and
Mm.
conditioning, with one of the African guys on the Lakers. I forgot his name.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. The name.
I just talked to him too about his family. Dang
he's
it.
with. He does a lot of stuff with Bart Kwan and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm. Jacob Ross.
Jacob Ross. There we
Yes.
go.
Okay, cool. So yeah, once I got the surgery, the great thing about the fitness community is like you can put some questions up and people will come back. Jacob came back with a message and told me all the things that I should do to start getting like range of motion
That's
back.
cool.
And I started doing all of that immediately. I did as much like single leg work as I could. I did a lot of upper body work too. So I mean, at the old gym, if I just had like a chair and I would like do cable work and just anything I could do, and I still got a lot of great workouts in, even though I wasn't able to, squat or any of like deadlift or any of that stuff at that point. But there was a bunch of things I could do for it. So
There's
those
a lot of-
workouts were good.
There's a lot of great ways to strengthen yourself when something's hurt, and they'll even say because of the way the body works and because of the way the central nervous system works. Let's say you were to break your right hand, and you can't train your right arm. So you're thinking, oh, my arm is going to really atrophy. There's a lot of science and just a lot of proof in general that training the left side of your body will help keep the hypertrophy in the right side of your body. So
I just heard about like 3 weeks ago.
yeah. I mean, look, I don't pretend to know all this stuff, but there's some, information about like the right and left crossing over and things like that. But I've seen it work for people in the past. And also too, look, you break your hand. It's like, let's just step back for a second. Let's think about the stuff that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
What are things I can do? Like I hurt my wrist really bad. Well, does the gym have a safety squat bar? Sounds like you're still in business. Sounds like
Yeah.
you're still in the game, you hurt your knee really bad. Like, are there any lower body exercises you can do? Maybe you can start training your calves a little bit because having stronger calves can help stabilize your knee better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can figure out, maybe you can't do a leg extension. Maybe you can't do a squat. Maybe you can't do a leg press, but maybe you can do some form of a leg curl. And now we have some range of motion. We got some movement. We're developing the hamstring, which could help potentially to stabilize the knee, right? It's like, let's focus on, that's always my advice to people whenever they get hurt. Let's focus on 3 to 5 things that you can do. And we can't really do anything about the things that you can't work. You can't do them right now. So
Exactly.
let's not even dwell on them.
Yeah. Like when I first had this shoulder subluxating, I told you that it was like months ago. It's because I stopped doing shoulder stuff, right? And then a subluxation is not a full dislocation, but it means the head of the shoulder is slipping in the joint. It did that like 6 times in a week, and I literally couldn't use the arm. Before I saw one of the guys at the gym, he was rolling with one arm for a little while because he was having shoulder issues too. So like I just put my arm in here. The guy that my chiropractor said, put your arm in your gi, just roll with your other hand. And I did that for a few weeks. And when I was able to get my right hand back, my left hand grip was fucking crazy. Like I was using my left hand way more naturally because I didn't have access to my right hand. So this is now so much easier to use.
How's that weird pinky thing?
Oh yeah, it's fine now. Oh, it's this side.
Okay.
You can tell it's a little bit
Yeah.
bent.
But can you squeeze it now?
I can bring my pinky down and stuff. But I found something I was able to do with the other hand, and like it benefited, even though I wasn't able to use the right one. So there's always something that you can do. There's always something you can figure out.
So the different ways you can work on some of this mindset stuff that we're talking about, it's infinite. There's so many different areas you can work on this. I try to balance things out between like what's reasonable and realistic for me to actually do. What are things that I actually like to do? I'm trying to figure some of that out too, because I like dieting. I like being lean. I like being able to handle some weight in the gym. But I'm also like, I don't want to be so deprived of everything all the time. I want to be able to enjoy myself. I want to be a dad. I want to be a husband. I want to be a friend. And I want to be chill and I want to have fun, So it's like, well, how do I mix all that in with like, quote unquote, wanting to be great or like wanting to be better? And there's a lot of ways you can challenge yourself. Something as simple, and might sound really stupid, but something as simple as like oxygen debt, just going into some oxygen debt. Get on a treadmill, get on a bike, go for a walk, and try to just hold your breath I'm not talking about holding your breath till you pass out. Just a little challenge to yourself, try the Bohr score. Try to gently just, breathe in, breathe out. As you breathe out, as you're walking, see how many steps you can take when you're doing it. Maybe wait 30 seconds and try it again, there's just so many different ways that you can test yourself. Something I try to work on sometimes, and this is where I run into balance issues sometimes. I will sometimes, like when I leave somewhere or when I get to somewhere, I will sometimes mess around in my car on my phone. Now, part of the reason why I do that is I don't really want my kids to see me with my phone. And so when I get inside the house, I put my phone away.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm like, I'm losing ground. I'm like losing time. I need to like get to, like, I want to get to where I'm going. And when I get to where I'm going, I want to get the hell out of the car. And so I'm trying to balance those two things out but literally you can make everything in your life a challenge. You can say, like, where are you losing ground in your day? Where are you spending too much time? Are you are you kind of finding yourself doing that? Because like maybe you're losing 5-6 minutes, but maybe you're losing 5 or 6 minutes everywhere you go all the time. And it's making you late, or it's making you this, or it's making you that. And you could be ahead. You could be ahead, but by cutting that one thing out, it's not cutting a corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's cutting out BS that you probably don't need. Maybe there's some other way that you could look at your phone and look at Instagram or whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah, like your diet too, though. Like straight up, so many people, even myself, I was like, I need this many carbs if I'm going to be able to perform. There's no way I'm going to be able to perform if I'm eating less than like 400 grams of carbs a day, right? And then I just try it out. I do it, and I feel pretty damn good. I find that, oh, wow, I actually perform better. I feel better on a day-to-day basis when I'm not eating that many carbs. It was more so an excuse for me to keep eating that much because I was too scared of letting it go. Or, you have certain snacks in your house or certain things in your house, and you're just too scared to let it go. You're like, I'm dieting, but I'll just have a little bit of this. I'll just keep it here, just in case. You know what I mean? Rather than, you should get rid of it, but you're too scared to take that leap or actually do that. Or, go to that limit and take it out of the house. So that's important in all aspects.
I think Mike O'Hearn is kind of the king of these challenges, like he'll diet, for 12 weeks, get himself super ripped. I know we pay homage to Mike on here all the time, but he's just an important figure to bring up because no one has a better mindset when it comes to training than Mike O'Hearn does. He might be in this severe training, might be in this severe caloric deficit, and he's like, I'm going to reverse grip 405 for a set of 5 while I'm dieted down, while I'm the lightest I've been in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way that he challenges himself. And you can challenge yourself the same way, but maybe it just looks different for you. So maybe you weigh, 185 and you're down to 175 and you still want to be able to push 225 for some reps, even while you're dieted down. You can kind of have different PRs. Westside Barbell has utilized that kind of principle for a long time. They got PRs for everything. They got PRs with their pinkies on the ring. They got PRs with their index fingers on the ring. They have body weight PRs. They have age PRs. They have, a PR coming back from rotator cuff surgery, right? Like you can really set up a lot of great challenges for yourself, and your reasons why can be so strong that you don't take rest in between your sets when you're doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
You can kind of think of it that way. You can really have a good reason to be there because you set up so many things for yourself that it's exciting. It's now exciting to be there, and that's what we're trying to get you to do.
I think we kind of first off, I'm so happy that Brian brought that up yesterday, and I saw some of the videos, because thinking about this, we just had that episode where we talked about competition to fuel yourself or to fuel your workouts, right? But I don't think we answered the question in that episode of outside of competition, when the workouts get boring, what can you do to keep that fire lit? And I think it's exactly what you're talking about right here. Figuring out things, or maybe figuring out new things that you can add to your workout that you can really try and get better at to bring some fire to what you're doing into the gym, or to bring some challenge to what you're doing in the gym, so that you're not going through the motions and you get super bored and you quit because you don't like what you're doing anymore. Figuring out things that you like that you can utilize to challenge yourself is, that's huge. And I never thought about that, but we're all doing that here inherently just because it's what we do.
Yeah, each thing is a challenge. I mean, even when I got here today, you're completely naked and, and you got that red light on you, right? But it's even that's a little bit of a challenge, not you getting naked, but spending time doing that, carving out time every day to try. I heard this is good. I heard this is worthwhile. I'm going to put this into practice, and you've been messing with it for the last few weeks.
Yeah.
That's a discipline. That's a challenge. It could be sitting in a sauna for an extra, you're in a sauna and you're dying. You're like, oh my God, I need to get the hell out of here. And you're like, no, let's see what it looked like if I was in here for another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Let me just see what it feels like. And again, you're not trying to go past any medical limits or anything like that. It's just a test. This is uncomfortable. Let me see how uncomfortable we can really make it.
Yeah. Is it Goggins that talked about embracing discomfort that much? Because it's all about just embracing that discomfort just a bit, not taking it to where you're not, well, maybe sometimes taking it to where a little not safe, but not too unsafe, but trying to find that balance of just not feeling that great. Because man, like some people I've like, there's people in my life that I've worked out with, right? And I see them going through it and they stop because they're like, this feels a little bit uncomfortable. And seeing what they did, I'm like, you could have done like 5 or 6 more reps. But it could be that they need more skill to feel comfortable with it, or they need more time. But you can do so much more. You know, it's just you're not there yet, or you don't feel confident enough in yourself to do that yet. But it's just, I guess, having people around you that can lead you into that deep water is also important. You mentioned that, like having gym partners or whatever,
Yeah.
people that can push you in there. Like you push Andrew all the time when he's felt like he couldn't do certain things. You're like, try it out. And boom, he does it.
It's so reassuring having someone else there to tell you that you're going to be fine. You know, like if you, like in jiu-jitsu, if one of these guys that at practice are bigger and stronger than you, they go to an event with you and you go and face someone where you're like, holy shit, man, this guy's big. They could say, I went against him before. You're going to dominate him.
Yeah.
Right. And it changes your mindset. You're like, oh, like, you know, hopefully you were calm and relaxed and confident about yourself before. But as soon as they said that, not that you're going to underestimate the opponent, but they're like, you know, they said, hey, dude, like I work with you every day. You're a monster. You're going to crush this guy. You're like, oh shit. Okay.
No, that thought's come across my mind many times too. But like at the same time too, when we were over at Mike's gym and I was doing that deadlift, I tweaked a little something my back on the set before. I was not confident in doing that very last set of pause lifts. And you were just like, just give it a shot. Do a few.
Yeah.
I did a few. It was good. But like literally, if you didn't tell me that, I would have backed off. I was going to back off from it.
Right.
You know, but you gave me that. You just told me those few words. And I was like, all right, let's do it.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes somebody just needs that confidence. And then we're also talking about like, you know, stuff that's, you know, you're maybe pushing the limits on like what's, you know, safe and what's not safe. I mean, you know, I've done diets and stuff before where I'm in the gym and I'm like, whoa, I'll do a lift and I'm like, man, I'm kind of like seeing the stars, or like some of this was a learning curve for me, you know, with the ketogenic diet. I didn't really, I would drink water and I'm like, man, I just always feel dehydrated, but I didn't know about salt. I didn't really realize I wasn't, you know, at the time, I just didn't have the knowledge. I didn't really realize I wasn't getting in enough potassium probably either. And I just didn't know how severe that was. And so I did things right up to a point, but I think that that's good. I think in a lot of ways it's good. And you can look at all kinds of stuff and think that it's unsafe. I mean, if I was to, you know, load up 500 pounds and do some squats, you know, it's been a while since I've handled that weight for like a bunch of reps. And there's potential for me to get hurt on it. So I could get hurt and you could say, well, shit, man, that wasn't smart. That wasn't very safe. But it's like, well, I've done it before, you know, so it should be relatively safe. Same thing if I went to jiu-jitsu practice and I saw you locking horns with one of the most competitive people. Maybe you're going with your coach. You're rolling with your coach. And I would look at that and be like, these guys look like two rams on a cliff trying to knock each other off. Like, because I don't think people understand how intense jiu-jitsu can be. Like, I think people just think it's like wrestling and grappling, and not that wrestling or grappling is slow and not intense. But I think that people don't understand when people are going in jiu-jitsu, it looks crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it really doesn't look too much different than just a full-on fight. They just don't happen to strike each other. But they're trying their best to gain position or to gain an advantage on their opponent. And you're going to be, when you're in the heat of the moment, somebody else would look at it and be like, that ain't very safe. But it's like these things that aren't safe, these things that are uncomfortable, we're not going to get anywhere without pain. We're not going to be able to grow unless there's some pain. So things are going to be difficult, things are going to be hard, and when you come out the other side of that, that's when you have some growth.
You know, it's funny that first off, you mentioned the keto thing, right? Where you're like, oh shit, I need to get some water or some sodium, where you were like suffering for a few days. When I was naked in front of the red light, I watched this Thomas DeLauer video, right, where he literally just tried carnivore, I think, for 30 days. And he was talking like the first few days, he was trying to eat really lean meat. And he was feeling like crap. He's like, 4 days into the diet, he's like, this carnivore diet thing isn't for me. But then he started adding some fattier meats in, and he started feeling amazing, right? And then I think after the third week, his subscribers were like, start adding in some organ meat, you might feel better. So he added in liver, and he's like, liver was the key, right? And he started feeling so much better with that. But like, he tried it out, and he was getting the learning curve for a little bit.
Yeah.
But after a while, he found like now there's a lot of things within the carnivore diet that he's going to utilize in his toolbox, but he tried it out. So that's massive, because a lot of the things we talk about and the guests we have on the podcast, it's cool to take a lot of what they say and try it out. Like Cole Robinson, he was the one who kicked me over the cliff to try a 48-hour fast. And for you, that doesn't sound, you did a 72, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that was my first time doing a prolonged fast. And it wasn't that bad. You know, I didn't feel bad like working out and doing all that stuff. So now I know that I can try something else and
You feel
see
like
what
it's
else.
like a benefit for you? Do you think it has like any place in your training and what you're kind of doing? Like, will you try it here and there, or you don't think so?
I think it has a time and a place. I think especially like with the amount of cardio that I do and lifting that I do, there has to be a benefit for me to do it. Like there are health benefits of prolonged fasts, you know, like every few weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
But personally for me, I'm not trying to lose weight. You know, I found I think the first night falling asleep was difficult as hell. So I'm not trying to drop any more weight or anything, but I think that actually, you know, if I was trying to maybe get ready for a photo shoot or something, and I wanted to like drop a little bit of body fat, I might use that, because after that 48 hours, I was lean as shit.
Yeah,
Like
and
I was super lean.
a dry fast is wild. You'll really like dry out quick.
Did you do that?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I just did a 24-hour dry fast, but it was really good. And then Cole was like, "Oh man," he's like, "You got to try it. You got to try it for 42 hours." You know, he's crazy, but it gives you more insight too, though, with coaching, right? So it
Yeah.
just gives you more information. I mean, that's all the stuff that you're going to try to do, even if you're not a coach and you're not even in the fitness community. It's just going to give you more knowledge going into everything that you're doing. So you might mess around with some intermittent fasting, and you might run into someone in your office and they really need help. They really need to they really want to lose weight. They need to lose weight. And you're like, "Hey, you ever try this? Like I've been doing this diet. How good is that going to make you feel? That's going to make you feel great." They come back, and you see them 2-3 weeks later or whatever. You see them every day in the office, and they're messing around with the fasting stuff, and they have their meals with them. They're turning the corner. They're turning over a new leaf, and they lose 10 pounds. It's like, man, that feels pretty damn good, and that puts you in a nice circle of people that are super positive. And it's just it's nice to be able to have that kind of reinforcement. I always say it here. It's like amazing how I know not everyone's like on their diet, 98% of the time, 100% of the time, but in here, people eat pretty healthy all the time, and I'm super proud of that. I think that's awesome. I see people with their Monster Mash all the
Yeah.
time. I see people mixing up protein shakes, and it's just cool. It's like, we have like 15 employees, and everyone's like kind of on board, and everyone's trying to be better than they were yesterday. It's awesome.
Man, I'm curious. I'm just curious about this. Back at the old gym when you were heavier, right? What was the food like then? Was
So
it a
this is-
mirror?
So this is why I talk about, like do more, be more, and sitting on the couch promotes sitting on the couch. Well, donuts promote donuts, and like I used to eat donut. The donut thing's actually kind of weird, because I don't, not that I found a donut that I don't like, but the donut thing, like somebody just brought donuts in on someone's birthday, and then it became a thing
Yeah.
because we happened to be filming that day, and then donuts were in there all the time. And it was always me stuffing my fat face with a
remember
donut because I thought it was funny, like on videos. And so people brought in more and more donuts all the time. But yeah, I would eat fast food and different stuff like that. I think at the time, I think people thought that that's all I ever ate, when really probably a good 80 to 85% of the time I ate pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
and when I say pretty good, I was still like overeating, but I ate a lot of meat and ate a lot of rice and ate a lot of potatoes and shit like that. But I also ate a lot of ice cream. I ate a lot of pizza. I ate a lot of fast food. I ate a lot of this and a lot of that. Really wasn't towards the very end of my career when I was like, maybe we should try to clean up the diet a little bit. Still eat food that keeps me big, but let me see what it looks like, if I have healthier foods. And it didn't really, I don't know. I probably didn't do it long enough to notice much of a difference. But the more reckless I was, the stronger I was.
Hmm.
That's how it worked for me.
Yeah. By the time I came around, I remember looking at the YouTube channel and being like, "Oh man, every time they train, there's donuts everywhere. This is gonna be awesome."
I'm going there.
Yeah, I can't wait. And then I was like looking around one day, like, huh, like I guess they don't do that like anymore, or what's going on here, guys?
You know, Planet Fitness has Pizza Fridays.
Yeah, yeah,
We have donuts every day.
every day.
We just one upped them.
Yeah. For people that are listening, they're like, you hear a lot about like, like how does Brian Alsruhe get this mindset, or how does Nsima get this mindset of like hitting the breaking point and then being like, I want more. Is it as simple as just like necessarily kind of not necessarily breaking down or whatever, but like finding that breaking point and then pushing a little bit more today? And then the next time you get there, okay, I did a little bit more. Let me try to do a little bit more than that. Is it as simple as doing that, or is it just constantly hitting that break point and then being like, okay, I survived it last time. I survived it this time. I'm going to survive again tomorrow.
Yeah, man, I think it like what you said is like makes a lot of sense, but I think that that's necessary to find out where that
Like your limit.
that limit actually is,
Mhm.
because if you don't do that, or if you do that, you're gonna sooner or later come across a point where you're just like, fuck, I'm way too beat, or maybe you're not recovering as well. So okay, let me back off of that a little bit. But you found it, like technically, some people, I think, what's his name? Oh well, somebody calls it maximum recoverable volume. There's some guy who utilized that term. He's from Juggernaut. It's not Chad. It's
Got it.
the other guy.
Max Aida?
Not Max Aida.
Damn it.
He does jujitsu also. He's a purple belt.
Oh, okay.
Strength guy. He has a PhD, but maximum recoverable volume. But like if you don't push that all the time, just a little bit, you can't ever come across that. Like, and at jujitsu, right? Like whenever I'm rolling and I'm super beat and I feel like really tired, it's just like I just tell myself, all right, just find someone else or point at somebody else and have them roll with you. Just when you're feeling like that, just try and do a little bit more. Try and do an extra set, or try and do a little bit more weight. And then you'll come across that point where you're like, I shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? But if you don't ever do it, you'll never really get to that point.
Yeah, I think having a mindset too of that you've never worked hard a day in your life, I think is a good mindset for people to have. Like you ain't done shit yet. Like you're not cool. You're not the best. You're not as good as you think you are. You got a lot to prove, and it's kind of nice to have like a chip on your shoulder. And you also, I don't do this kind of stuff as much anymore, but when I was lifting, it was important to me. And when I was in pro wrestling, we all did drills together. There'd be like 40, 50, sometimes 60 people in a class. And you'd watch each guy go. And some of these guys and some of these girls were so athletic. But it was important to me that I developed a skill where they would go, oh, that was different. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit, that guy did that perfect. That roll or the backward roll or the bump that he took. You take it with a little extra intensity. And maybe you can't figure out how to make it look better. So wrestling is like theatrical kind of, and you're like, I'm going to figure out a way for it to look different. And even in prepping for a match and preparing for a match, we would watch the other matches on the screen in the back, and there's only so many different versions of a match you can do, especially when you don't like understand the sport that well, you just haven't been around it that long. And so you'd watch somebody and be like, oh man, they're working the leg or they're working the arm. It's like, it's kind of just part of the way that these matches go. Well, you can do the exact same match as somebody else and have it look completely different because your execution was so good. So no one would ever recognize that you copied the piece of shit match that was before you if yours was better. Like if your timing was better, if you were snapping better, if you were, like if you did like a drop kick, you got really high and kicked the guy in the face rather than, doing some shit drop kick where you barely hit the guy in the chest. Things like that. You had to really you had to really kind of like go for it. And those are a lot of things I learned, through that sport. But it's like when it's time to go and do something, you want to try to put in the best possible effort that you can. Part of the reason why I don't do stuff the same way anymore is because like First of all, I'm not in a huge hurry to get like better, which might sound kind of dumb, but like I don't mind taking my time with stuff, and I don't mind kind of hanging out in the gym for a little bit. Secondly, like when I'm doing a lot of stuff, I do a little bit more tempo stuff, so I'm not trying to move like a maniac. And one way to kind of show how fierce you are is to move like a maniac. I might do it sometimes on dumbbells. I might grab like 150s and kind of chuck them around and get a little angry and do stuff like that. But for the most part, it's like I might grab the 80s and do it with like more tempo. The mindset is still there, though. The intensity is still there. The intent is still there. I'm still thinking about how am I going to get the most out of this set. Either way, it's still the same thing. It just is going to look a lot different. But in my opinion, it's kind of cool when somebody watches you do something and they go, "Oh, fuck." Like Kaylor Woolen with his 915 pull the other day, right?
I didn't see that.
Like I didn't know. Like it's like I didn't know we were playing that game. Like shit. Like I don't have an answer to that. Like whatever that was different. He smashed it. He absolutely smashed away. He crushed it.
Yeah.
He's been doing a lot of conventional pulling. He brought up the strength of his lower back. He did a 915 deadlift, and it just looked like nothing. It was stupid.
God, I need to watch. Sumo? He did it sumo. He did.
Yeah, sumo. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, he built up his conventional to like 881, I think. So he built that up quite a bit, and then he just ripped this 9. I mean, it just looked like if his hands could handle it, that he would pull 1,000 pounds. I don't know if this is a 915. How much is that?
What?
Yeah, it says.
There's one that looks different than that. Maybe is that his?
Yeah, it says 9. It says 915.
Oh,
maybe this is an older one then.
Yeah. Try. Yeah. Try more recent stuff. It was just from like a day or two ago. Because that one that one was fast, but he got hung up. There you go, the red.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
watch this. That's actually cool because now we get to compare. This is just dumb.
Well, his shirt's way better in this one.
Shoot.
Oh, the lockout was so beautiful. He just slid right through there.
He's looking big.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's got some good mass to him. I know that's hard for him, so he's been working hard on that.
Man.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, when he stands up, he's
Yeah.
the lats won't go back down.
when he was here and I was taking pictures of him and he like threw his shirt off and stuff, I'm like, dude, you look like a Street Fighter character.
yeah, he looks like a video game character.
Yeah.
It's scary.
His back is wide, man.
But even like after he dropped it, he kind of was like, whoa, like, huh, all right, well, that worked. He just doesn't even know what happened.
Yeah, man. Kaylor's legendary. But yeah, that's a beautiful pull. The real not to talk about like sumo technique or anything, but watch his hips.
Yeah.
Like watch how his hips don't get affected by the weight. Like you'll see a lot of people, their hips will come up when they start the pull, but his hips just stick there. Oh, man.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be the strengthening of the lower back through the conventional pulling.
Yeah. But he's never been one to lose his hip position that bad.
No, he's always been. He's been getting a lot of help from, I think he mentions the guy's name in there, but Tom Martin, I believe it is. Tom Martin doesn't get credit as being an awesome power lifter. He'll actually be at Slingshot Record Breakers. I never met him before.
Oh, sick.
Really, really talented lifter. I think he pulls about 400 kilos as well. He's a
Conventional guy?
he's an absolute monster.
Oh, that's Kaylor.
I'm not sure. Maybe he pulls sumo too, but he uses a lot of conventional deadlifts to get strong.
Yeah.
Doing some block pulls, it looks like. Yeah, he's a strong guy. But I think, back to, what I was saying, I was saying, like, I think it's good to recognize that maybe you just haven't even worked nearly as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Maybe you just have never, like all of us, put all of us on blast, right? Like, maybe there's a lot of people listening to this right now that work out every day. And they don't have any idea what it's like to push themselves as hard as possible. And I'll say that even to myself, because I have trained with people that push really, really hard during certain types of workouts. I don't push myself like that all the time.
Mm-hmm. I
could certainly push myself harder. Now, and Andrew will attest to this, like when I did the bodybuilding show, like we trained way harder at that time. nothing has really changed. I didn't like turn into like a big puss. I still love to train. We still get after it. There's still intensity, but the intent and the purpose, right? And that's, I think we're trying to always find like the reason why and the purpose. Like, what's the purpose behind this? For Andrew, it was like, my boy's doing a bodybuilding show, and I'm going to support him, and I'm going to be there with him. Then when Andrew turned around and did the powerlifting meet, I was like, my boy's doing a powerlifting meet. I'm going to support him, and we were driven towards that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that worked. And then sometimes you're like, man, what are we doing now?
No joke. When we were doing cable crossovers today, I was gonna say that, but I didn't know how to approach you about it, and I didn't like want to sound. I didn't want to sound like a bitch and be like, "Hey, Mark, like, what's next?" Because like everybody asks you that all the time.
Yeah.
But like I meant it kind of like where are we going from here now, man? Like, what are we doing? So
yeah, I always have a lot of nexts, but I don't always have them in the gym. And some of that is like complacency. I'll just be honest. I've done it. I've lifted it. I lifted a bunch of shit already, you know? And I even sometimes get frustrated with like even like an Instagram post. Like, I don't want to fucking post any more lifting on there. Like, I already squatted 1,000 pounds. My numbers are already on the internet. They're already there. Like, they're cemented in history. They're stuck there, you know?
Yeah.
I did the highest total in the history of California. It's stuck there. No one's beaten it since. And, you know, it's like, go reference that. I don't want to lift that shit anymore.
It reminds me of Elliot when he was talking about like now he's like, you know, he's fast and he's smaller than he was. He's like, I have all this strength shit on the internet. Just go look at that. You don't need to look at all my new stuff. I'm doing something new now.
Yeah, exactly.
But what Brian said yesterday in terms of David Goggins, he said when you're at 100%, you're only at 40. That is exactly what you're saying right now. Like when you actually think you're putting it all out, you're not.
That messed me up.
That messed me up a little bit too. I was thinking about that. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, dang, I'm not trying at all.
It's really true. And as hard as you're going at jiu-jitsu, you know, one of your other classmates or something could call you out and be like, dude, let's go harder. And you'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
But it only happened for that, like, you know, one practice. Does it happen at the next practice? And there's also like some, like, what's reasonable? Like, can we be that way all the time?
Yeah.
Maybe if you're that way all the time, you miss out on some camaraderie. Maybe you miss out on joking with somebody. Maybe you miss out on somebody saying, hey, dude, like, you know, my girl broke up with me. Can we go hang out afterward? Like, maybe you miss out on something that keeps you in the game for longer than if you were like, the whole time, right? You know what I mean? As funny as it sounds, right? But like, maybe that's all. Maybe that's all part of it. I think guys like Bones Jones and guys like Michael Phelps have kind of led the charge in showing people like they knew the right way for them to train. And some people are like, oh, Bones, you know, he doesn't show up to practice. Well, maybe that's because like that kind of goes back to what I'm talking about. Maybe he's playing the long game. Maybe Bones Jones doesn't go 40%. Right? Maybe he doesn't understand 40. Maybe Bones Jones goes 100 when he's there, or 95, you know, and everyone else is at 40%, right? Like maybe he goes that extra mile. And the same would probably be said of like Michael Phelps, where they were saying for a while he was missing a lot of practices and he still went in the Olympics and destroyed everybody. But maybe those people that like maybe those guys have found what works best for them, and maybe when it is time to go, maybe they're like mental and maybe they just go way harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
I know Kobe had that mindset. Kobe just wanted to like light the world on fire.
He wanted to outwork you so he could he just wanted to also show you all the stories you hear about him, like how he'd like stay there purposefully longer after, or like he'll watch people and he'll just make sure that he doesn't leave the building until after they leave the building, just to show that he is working harder than you. You know, that's something else.
And I mean, I know Kobe wouldn't have been Kobe unless he was Kobe, but like, I mean, how many more championships would they have had if he was just like a nicer person to other people?
Right.
Like
maybe.
Or would they have? Or
about that.
No, exactly. So that's I was going to say like what? Well, or maybe they would have had less. Like we don't know.
Yeah.
But it's like still like it makes you think.
Let's say he's like 5% worse as a basketball, or 10% worse. Say he's 5% worse on offense, 5% worse on defense, but he's Shaq's homie.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah,
You know what I
you
mean?
got a
Like,
point
like
there.
maybe right? Like
Yeah.
maybe
That
they,
might have been 6.
And yeah,
and maybe they win a few
who
more.
knows?
You
I
know?
mean, kind of glad, but like even Steve Kerr, with Michael Jordan, he like he went up and punched him, and Steve Kerr was like, "That was the best thing that's ever happened to me."
Mhm.
Like what? But because obviously
Why
he's-
the fuck did Michael Jordan punch Steve Kerr?
I don't
Steve
remember. He
Kerr's
pro-
like 5'11".
maybe that's why he was just a bully. But no, who knows?
Kerr,
Maybe-
you hit too many game-winning three-pointers. You son of a bitch.
Yeah. Damn, he could shoot the lights out too.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah. But no, he probably was just like dogging it during one practice, one
Right.
play, and he just got all pissed off and went up and punched him.
You know what's funny?
It's Michael Jordan. He can do whatever he wants.
It's a way to keep them in line.
Yeah.
You guys heard of Smush Parker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny how like even in interviews now,
Uh-huh.
like Kobe continues to dog on Smush
That's
Parker.
amazing.
All these years later, he's like, fuck Smush Parker. Like, where is Smush right now hearing these things? Like, damn, Kobe's still coming after me because I didn't work that hard?
I mean, I think they wasted like a really high draft pick on him, right? Or something
Yeah,
like that.
I think so.
Yeah. Not as bad as Kwame Brown, but
My name was almost Kwame.
really?
Yeah, it just means born on Tuesday, even though I wasn't. But that's my dad wanted to name me, and my mom was like, no, let's not name him Kwame.
Yeah, and then the guy that Brian was talking about, Olu.
Oh, yeah, Olu. Woo!
Yeah, that dude's a
Olu
monster.
is-
But all I could think about was that's Nas's dad's name.
Oh. Yeah.
But what was that? What was that guy's Instagram though? Do you remember?
Olu- Just type in OLU. You'll. I think it'll pop up. Oluwatafemi something. Type in Olu WATA.
Brian was talking about it on the podcast yesterday.
Yeah, this
Right after the podcast.
Oh, okay.
yeah, this strong Nigerian dude that apparently broke some American squat record.
Mm.
And he was saying that what's not Larry. Yeah.
How do you spell it again? You
Oh.
can just grab it at your phone.
Okay.
That's fine. It's not like we're live or anything.
Anyway, but yeah, we are. Yeah, but
It's so interesting to me how different ethnicities have like a better propensity towards strength. Like a lot of great Olympic lifters are Chinese. And people might think some of the stuff's like racist or whatever, but like when it comes to mobility, when things have a lot to do with mobility, like figure skating,
yeah,
there's a lot of really talented Asian competitors, and then the same thing in Olympic lifting. Like Olympic lifting requires a lot of strength, but it also requires a lot of mobility. And then when it comes to strength, we're seeing, and even CrossFit, a lot of strength and a lot of amazing ability comes from some of the Nordic countries like Iceland. You see like what is it? Or you have where's Hapthor's from?
Iceland.
He's from Iceland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so you have like just these kind of these massive people, these massive bone structures.
yep,
And your bone structure, and like a lot of the Nigerian people that you point out to me, I'm always like, fuck.
their bone structure is ridiculous. Like, it really is.
It's insane. It's insane that the way, like each one of us is gifted something, but it kind of seems like sometimes we don't have an opportunity to like display it because we don't maybe try that particular sport. We don't maybe try that particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's, I don't know. I just think it's fascinating, and I don't really hear people talk about it that much because I think people think it's like a touchy subject.
People think it's a touchy subject, but it's not. It's just like everybody has advantages in certain areas. You know what I mean? Like, if I never started jujitsu, I would never realize that like maybe there's something there for me, but you take a shot at it. So I think it's just for everyone just figuring out, like, not even just athletically, some people, shoot, what are some weird professions? Some people start, getting into math or something like that, and they notice that they're gifted with numbers or something.
Right.
For some reason, that just comes really easy to them.
Right.
Everybody has that thing. It's just, you just got to figure out what it is, even if it's not something within the gym or athletically.
What's your next competition in jiu-jitsu?
U.S. Open, I think that's coming up in September. But I literally just found out because Settlegate told me and Joey told me that there's a slingshot thing happening then where but you're bringing a bunch of people are coming down and having some type of like Dana Lynn Bailey and a bunch of stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's happening on the same weekend.
Oh my God.
I don't want to miss that. So like I'm trying to figure out like exactly what time the matches are so I can see if I could like just I don't know. Hopefully it doesn't
Go choke some people out and leave and come back over here.
Yeah, but that would be the next one. I just got to make sure that it won't
Yeah.
won't
Sweet.
get in the way.
Yeah,
But yeah.
that's awesome. Do you see it's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you see a lot of Brazilians still being dominant in the sport, or is it a good mix now because it's been, the information has been taught and it's been out there for a long time? Like Brazilian jiu-jitsu has really spread to a lot of other people, right?
Yeah, man. No, there's a lot of there's a
Is
lot of
Cassio Brazilian?
Cassio's Brazilian. Yeah, he's Brazilian. He's from there.
He fucks all you guys up.
He fucks all of us up. He does. But the thing is that a lot of other people are discovering the martial art. You're seeing a lot of like Gordon. I forgot his name, but his Instagram name is Gordon Loves Jiu-Jitsu. He's this American dude who's been doing jiu-jitsu for like 6 or 7 years. He trains with Danaher. You know who John Danaher is in New
I've
York?
heard the name, yeah.
Heard the name. And Gordon's been just wrecking everybody. And the thing is, Gordon is so loudmouth that like a lot of Brazilians don't like him because he's like, I'll kill all of you guys. Let's put money down. Let's put 300K
shit.
down. And he's calling out top guys and he's actually proving it. So like jiu-jitsu is spreading and it's like there are still a lot of Brazilians at the top, but there are a lot of other people that are now like inching towards that,
Right.
So, oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah, even in the UFC, we still see a lot of Brazilians being dominant.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, since it's spread, you're seeing a lot of Americans are really starting to take that, and you actually are seeing there's quite a few pro athletes like NFL guys in the lower ranks that have started and that are just like putting it down, like the guy who beat me at Pan Am's, Jason Shirley. He just got his purple belt too, so hopefully we'll be able to compete against each other at Worlds again sometime. But yeah, he's killing. So,
what are some things in jiu-jitsu that have really surprised you?
I think the first big thing that surprised me that made me really want to stick with jiu-jitsu is that strength matters, but it doesn't matter. And I mean it like this.
It's still relevant.
It's relevant.
It's not. It's maybe not an enormous factor.
It's not an enormous factor if you don't have the technique to back it up. And I realized that by getting my ass kicked by so many people that were hundreds of pounds lighter than me initially. And it's because I didn't have that technique. So I was just trying to like hold their arm, but I'd hold their arm and then they use the momentum of me holding them to push me through and lock my arm and some shit. I was just like, God dang.
Martial
what I mean?
art.
Yeah.
It's like an art, and there's a skill and practice, of this art. And if you don't adhere to it,
you're not going anywhere.
You're not going literally, right? I mean, you could get me and stuff. Obviously, you could break my arm, or you could tweak this or tweak that, but you could get me in a position where I cannot move.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been lifting and exercising my entire life.
You've moved thousands of pounds.
Yeah. People seen me bench press 578 pounds, but I could be in a position where I literally cannot move.
Yeah. That's what got me so stuck into
crazy.
it. Yeah, exactly. That's what got me so stuck into it because
And Josh weighs 170, right? Or 160. He could probably put me in a position where I can't move.
Josh would, yeah.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And he has a wrestling base, right?
He has a wrestling base. Josh
he
is
would
really
be,
good.
just to make it official, he would be fired.
Just so he knows.
He'd have to be like, Mr. Bell, there's no way I could hold you in this position. You're way too strong. You're way too powerful. You know what I mean? He'd have to lie about it.
Because someone on the live chat, known as CLH, says wrestlers dominate jiu-jitsu.
That's kind of funny because that's a joke. And let me tell you why. Wrestlers dominate jiu-jitsu at the lower levels. Wrestlers are like cats. They don't like to be on their back. So especially in the gi, let me say this. In the gi, wrestlers are scared because they don't like being stopped. They like keeping things moving. So if I grab a wrestler's gi and stop him from moving around, he's mine. Like, yeah, I think it's, if you're a wrestler, get into jiu-jitsu because you already have a base of like grappling. But jiu-jitsu is different because once it's taken to the ground, that's not a wrestler's domain. He can like put people in holds and stuff, but it's not a wrestler's domain to be on his back. So there's strengths and weaknesses to wrestlers, but they don't dominate. Like you can beat wrestlers. They're scary initially.
So I've been watching UFC since UFC 1, so maybe I can clear up what this guy's thinking and what he's seeing. Wrestlers do great in MMA, and they do amazing in the UFC. But the UFC is a totally different game than just jiu-jitsu or just wrestling. The UFC, the guys are so skilled that you can't really even you can use jiu-jitsu, and you could, you see people tap quite frequently. But most people are aware, and most people are pretty darn skilled, or at least skilled enough in jiu-jitsu to where they can block a lot of the things. Sometimes you don't even see jiu-jitsu being practiced in the UFC.
Yeah.
What you might see more of is more striking and more wrestling. That's not really because wrestling is superior or striking is a superior form of like combat or a superior way to protect yourself or to even inflict harm on someone else. It's just the fact that a lot of these guys know how to block these other holds and these other moves. So people it's a strategy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I already know that you know jiu-jitsu really well, I'm like, I'm going to take my chances up here, And so, and even for yourself, if you've been working on your striking, you might be like, I don't really care. Like if we end up on the ground, we end up on the ground. So therefore you and I could fight for 5 rounds and not even end up doing any jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really mean that, wrestling or, punching and kicking is superior. Normally what you see in the UFC, the best guys, they have a really good wrestling background and they have a good striking background. Again, that doesn't mean that they don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't see Bones Jones. You might see Bones Jones choke someone out, but it's usually after he kind of like beats the shit out of him first. He beats him down first.
Yeah.
And then choking the person out is actually like just a byproduct of like, he really kicked the shit out of the guy, and the guy can't defend himself anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part in the UFC, all those guys are fairly skilled when it comes to at least defending some of it. That's kind of what I've seen over the years.
Yeah.
That might be what that guy's kind of referring to.
Yeah.
The Daniel Cormier's and some of these guys getting in there and like smothering people,
Man, yeah, like I get exactly what you're saying. There's 2 sides to this. Ben Askren was killing until he got that knee to the face, and he was like a pure wrestler too. So right, there's a weakness there because that guy knew he was going to go to the ground, and he just smacked him in the face. But then there's Habib.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Then there's Habib. And
dude.
you know what's funny? Habib doesn't even do jiu-jitsu. He just started. He's a white belt in jiu-jitsu right now. You know what I mean?
How terrifying is that?
That is scary as shit. Now, like, Habib is just someone who, like, he can strike and he can do all that. But if he gets his arms around you, that's wrestling and a bunch of other grappling stuff. But my God, like, how do you explain that?
Mm-hmm.
You can strike the hell out of him, but if he takes you, like,
Yeah, Dan Severn, who we had here on the podcast, it's like the guy got through a whole career of 50 or 60 fights without a scratch on him. And he didn't even know how to do anything. He's like, jiu-jitsu, what's that? He's like, what are they going to do? Put my arm behind my back? He's like, how bad could that hurt? He's like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I think MMA is a different beast from like competition jiu-jitsu. It's a totally different beast. So
Yeah, and also having a gi. Have you done? I mean, I guess you
I haven't
compete.
competed in no-gi.
Yeah,
I trained some no-gi, but I haven't competed in no-gi. I
huge
feel
difference between the two, right?
there is a huge difference. I think that like competing in the gi can be good for no-gi because there's a lot more things you can do in a gi that you just won't do a no-gi because you don't have anything to grab on. You just have your opponent. So no-gi's slipperier, more slippery. There's less time to like, since you can't really grab on something and keep your opponent down, it like there's a lot more movement, a lot more pummeling. So yeah,
there's
it's quicker.
there's also no gi jiu-jitsu
There's
tournaments.
no-gi jiu-jitsu tournaments. There's no-gi worlds. Yeah, like for every competition that there's a gi, there's a competition for no-gi.
Oh wow.
Pretty much, yeah. So I haven't competed much in no-gi because I don't have that many no-gi training partners. But it's fun. It's really, really fun. No-gi also is a lot of people like to go for legs in no-gi, So I'm very careful with the competitions I pick because there's a certain thing called a heel hook in jiu-jitsu, and heel hooks are like probably the most dangerous submission because if someone really cranks it, they'll tear your ACL and they'll just rip your knee up. And people have done that in competition before too. So I stay away from any competition that has heel hooks involved because I want to compete for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Damn.
yeah, at a lot of tournaments, you'll see guys put on heel hooks and they're not nice about it. Like, even if I like guys that I train with. If they put on a heel hooks in competition, they'll hold it, and their opponent knows that they have it. But there are some guys who just like they don't care, and then
They give it a
they have
little
your
extra.
foot, and they're just like, ha, and they end your career. So
Like, whoops.
yeah, it's not a whoops though; it's on purpose.
Oh,
Yeah, because it's not one of those things you could accidentally do.
Yeah, like
When we were at 10th Planet, I seen a chick heel hook another chick, and like they were so before that they were going at it for a while, and I mean I'm sure you've seen this, at maybe not at Casio's, but you've seen people where they're rolling and like, oh shit, you stepped up, okay, I'm gonna step, and
yeah, of course.
they just kept amping it up and up and up, and I can see the look in her face, and she got her heel hook and pop pop and like I just heard both of them like scream at the same time, and I was like, oh, you suck for doing that.
Yeah.
But it was like interesting because like I seen it go from like stage 1 to you're mean for doing that one, because you can tell like she did it on purpose.
Yeah, man. You just gotta you gotta know it's dangerous.
Yeah. How excited are you guys for Masvidal versus Diaz?
That's gonna be awesome.
oh yeah.
Dude, I can't wait. It's I think November 1st. I think.
I love watching Diaz fight.
Dude, my thing is I'm afraid because like obviously I'm a Diaz fan. He's like what, half an hour away from here right now.
Yeah, Stockton, baby.
He gets hit, and he keeps coming at you. But Masvidal has some serious power. Oh my god.
I feel like they're
Yeah.
almost the same person, kind of.
Yeah, that's what makes it so interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't been this fired up for a fight since probably, I don't know, maybe Diaz McGregor.
Ah.
Yeah.
It should be pretty cool. I think we should kind of bring this one in and maybe kind of leave people with something that they can do. Give them something tangible to try out. You see people kind of put up like these 30-day challenges and things like that, and I think those kind of things can be sort of fun, and this could kind of help lead you into suffering beautifully, as our friend Brian Alsruhe said on our podcast. I think something that I would give people to do. We talk a lot about many different things here on the podcast, but just try a couple of days. I'll just give you a certain amount of days. Let's just try 2 days of a very, very low carbohydrate intake. Try 2 days of very low carbohydrate intake. Let's say that you're somebody that kind of pays attention to the food that you're eating. You normally eat like 200 or 300 grams. Try a day where the only like intentional carbs that you eat is maybe the equivalent of like half of a baked potato, or maybe it's the equivalent of maybe like a cup of rice. And throughout the day with your other food, maybe you have some veggies and you have some meat. Just try it out 2 days. If you can make it a third day, that would be kind of cool. See how it feels. Did it feel good? Did you sleep well? Did your workouts feel okay? If they didn't, then maybe it's not great for you, or maybe you have to make some adjustments and try to increase the amount of fat and try it for a few more days. But I think it's really worth a try to try things out for 2 or 3 days at a time, see how it feels, and see if you can kind of continue on the path if it feels okay for you. You might find yourself losing some water weight that you just kind of been holding on to for a while. So that's kind of my challenge to you is try low carbohydrates, try getting under like 50 grams and give it a shot for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But if you can do it for more than 2 or 3 days, then do it for more than 2 or 3 days, because like the learning curve you talked about, maybe you didn't really get that learning curve in that little bit of time. Maybe you gotta add some more things in, and then it'll really work well for you. I know it didn't work for me initially when I went low carb. I felt like shit, and I almost stopped. So
yeah, because you're going low carb, maybe bump the fats up immediately. Have a ribeye, have some whole eggs, a couple things like that.
Salt.
Yeah,
Make sure I add that salt.
Yeah, keep that salt in.
Yeah, and if I'm gonna leave anybody with anything, just like Andrew said, if you're working out, do a little bit more the next day. Maybe if you're doing some cardio stuff, do an extra set of burpees, or maybe an extra set of squats. Try it out and see how you feel. But just try and do a little bit more, and try to find where that is. Try to find where that place is where you're like, okay, I didn't know I could do this, and I did. Well, okay, let me work with this. Figure that out. give it a shot.
Yeah, and I would just add to that is like whatever it is in the gym, like whether it's a machine that you look at, you pass by every day, you haven't touched it in a couple months, or you seen Mark Bell do burpees one day and you haven't done a burpee in like 4 years. Give it a try this week.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And it's, if you haven't done one in 4 years, why not try to give yourself a repetition amount that makes sense, that represents the fact that you haven't been doing it in 4 years.
Yes.
So let's say you're doing it in between doing some, one-arm dumbbell presses or something like that, because it's a great opportunity to do a burpee in between a movement like that, because it's going to get your heart rate up. You're still going to be able to be effective with the overhead press. You go back and forth between the two. Just do like 4 or 5 reps. Keep it really, really easy. Maybe even go down 1 rep and you do 4 sets of the overhead press, and you do 4, 3, 2, 1 with your burpees. It just, kind of ease your way into it. Get a good feel for it. Get a good sensation for it. And Nsima just reminded me of there's a really good speech, and it's called "Just Do It," and it's from someone I admire a ton. His name is Art Williams. Art Williams has been a motivational speaker for a really long time. I was lucky enough to see him live. I actually tried to chase him down, and I got in trouble. I went backstage, and they were like, "What are you doing back here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a friend of Art's." They were like, "Get out of here, dude." They knew I didn't know him, but Art Williams used to sell life insurance, and he ended up selling life insurance, or not selling life insurance. He ended up starting a life insurance company, and he ended up beating Prudential, and he ended up beating some of the biggest companies in the world. He later ended up selling it. He's extremely successful, to the tune of he's worth like $4 billion or something really wild like that. And he did his speech in 1984. It's called "Just Do It." And in 1985, Nike started their "Just Do It" campaign. You can kind of read between the lines. Nike claims they don't know anything about it, but I'm sure they do.
Crazy.
But during his speech, he talked about a little bit more. He kept saying a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. He said, "What's the $50,000 a year guy do, or what's the $200,000 a year guy do that the $50,000 a year guy isn't doing?" And he just said, he does this a little bit more. He does that a little bit more. He does this a little bit more. So try to figure out your a little bit more that you can do in your day. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later.